Hey there, guys. We're back with another ASMR Dragonfruit reading. My name's Daniel James Drake, and I'm going to be your reader today. So I have before me a product called Anthromancer. And built into Anthromancer is a new kind of oracle called Dragonfruit Alchemy. It's a little bit like tarot, but it's a little different, so follow along and I'll try and explain everything as much as I can as we go. You don't have to know anything about this to get something out of this, so don't be scared. I have a deck of cards, 71 cards, and each one means something. And then when those cards show up in different places on this board, those meanings can transform based on the classical elements of earth, water, fire, and air. If air shows up in fire, it gets consumed. If fire shows up in water, it gets put out. That sort of thing. So I'm going to take these cards and these dice and I'm going to set them aside. So the very first thing that we do in a Dragonfruit reading is we're going to roll these two six-sided dice together. One of these is called the Fool Die, and that's going to create a mask, a character archetype. The leader, the rebel, the teacher, things like that. This is called the Fox Die, and the Fox Die puts that mask in a specific part of experience. Maybe the focus is on path and direction. Maybe the focus is on thought. Maybe it's on emotion. That's what the Fox Die is going to determine. Are you the leader of path? Are you the leader of thought? Are you the leader of needs? That sort of thing. So the first thing we do is we roll these two dice together. All right. This is going to be an interesting one. So we got the 4 on the Fool Die and the 6 on the Fox Die. So what does that mean? Now, if you're new to the system, I've got a little quick reference card here you can follow along with. You can find a copy of this at anthromancer.com/quickreference. In the bottom right-hand corner of the card, we have a little chart that reminds us of what these numbers mean. So the 4 on the Fool Die generates the Queen, the soldier. The archetype of the soldier, somebody who's devoted to a cause. Maybe that's an internal cause, maybe that's an external cause. Now the Fox Die generated a weird one. So the 6... This is not the final edition of this product. When this product's actually made, those 6s are going to be replaced with little icons. On the Fox Die, it's going to be an icon that's called the Seed of Life. It's a sacred geometry thing. We don't have to go too into that. Suffice to say that when you roll the Seed of Life on the Fox Die, you generate the sphere of flow, conception, truth, unity, and infinity. So this is going to be a weird reading. That's a big theme. The Seed of Life, the suit of flowers. We use the word flowers to describe it. So when you roll the Queen of Flowers, what figure is that? What person is that? What personality archetype is that? Well, that's somebody that's devoted to truth. Somebody who understands some quality of the universe, a certain degree of how strange it is to be a person. This is somebody who's devoted to enlightenment in a lot of ways. A person who wants to grow, who wants to blossom and find the fullness of their being, who wants to find a way to flow through life in all of its light and darkness and find balance in this experience. That's kind of cool. I don't mind being that person for this reading. So this is us. This is our character. So now we're going to roll this. This 12-sided die is called the Zodiac Die. And what the Zodiac Die does is it generates a number from 1 to 12. And those numbers are tied to specific themes that are expressed by all of the other cards that share that value in the deck. So all the 5s are governed by the same themes. All the 9s are governed by the same themes. This is going to be our challenge. The Zodiac Die creates the conflict that our main character goes through. So we're the Queen of Flowers, devoted to flow, enlightenment, truth, infinity. Let's see what challenge we're facing today. Interesting. So we rolled a 5. What does 5 mean? 5s are tied to Dragoon. And what does Dragoon mean? Dragoon means thrust, choice, judgment, attack. 5s represent that moment when a decision is made. You've built up your energy, you've aimed at something, and now you thrust forward. It's a very active number. It's a very intentional card. Now, the warning with Dragoon, the warning with this theme of thrust is that when we have a lot of energy and we're thrusting forward with it, if we're not aimed at the right thing, if our actions aren't wise, or if we're missing information, we can do a lot of damage to ourselves and others. This is the stuff of mistakes. That's why judgment is in there. The warning of Dragoon is that often we're conflicted. For this to be a challenge, that means that maybe we're not sure what the right action is. Maybe there's an action we need to take that we don't see. Maybe the clock is ticking. So we're devoted to flow. But thrust is our challenge. Alright, so that's our setting. That's our character and our conflict. We've got the seed of our story. So let's take these cards. I'm going to shuffle these just a couple times. And then we'll deal them out. Wonder if I can shuffle. This is going to be... Okay, so now we're going to cut those cards. And there we have our deck. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to deal one card into each of the spaces in the cardinal directions. Now, each one of these spaces, each one means something different, and each one is tied to a classical element. Just like all the cards in the deck are tied to a classical element. Earth, water, fire, air. And each one of these spaces is earth, water, fire, and air. When a card turns over in one of those spaces, whichever two elements are represented affect one another. We're going to go earth, water, fire, air. Now the earth sphere is tied to the past. So if this is our little story, this is our character and our conflict, this is something in the past that led to this conflict. Then here, we move forward, time goes this way. So in this column here, we have the present moment, this conversation. And here, we have subconscious energy expressed by the water sphere. So this is some kind of emotional current that's going beneath us. Whatever we're experiencing in the present moment, whatever this conflict, whatever we decide this means, this card is going to tell us something about the emotions that are governing our actions here. Here, we have the sphere of future, the direction things are moving. This is where this conflict is leading, a possible outcome, and something to either aim for or be mindful of avoiding. And then lastly, we're going to come back and we're going to turn over the card of conscious thought in the present moment. This is a reflection on all the other cards and sort of a quality of our conscious awareness now. Maybe a lesson we can carry with us moving forward now that we've experienced this process. Now you get the gist. We're going to come over here. The Earth Sphere. What is this card? Let's take a look. We can tell right now that this is going to be a hymn. This is going to be a powerful card, a dominant meaning. The hymns govern the meanings of all the other cards in the deck. Let's see. Okay, so what do we have? We have hymn 3, Optimo. Now you can see in the background a green shape. It's called an octohedron. This is the platonic solid associated with the classical element of air. And this Earth sphere has a red cube in the background, so this is Earth and air. Let's define this card first. Let's take a look at Optimo. Without showing up, without any context, what does this card mean by itself? Well, straightforward. You can come and take a look at this list. Scroll on down to Optimo. Genesis. Hearth, innocence, protection. Genesis. What does that mean? Genesis, it's the beginning of things. Hearth. A hearth being a cozy fireplace, a home where you protect your youth. Innocence. Protection. The idea expressed in Optimo is that forms of energy that are new, things that are just experiencing their beginning, whether they're new concepts, new inventions, new ideas, new people, babies. When something is born into the world, when something is new, it can't survive on its own. It never does. There's too much chaos and there's too much hostility. It needs protection. Some new thought form, some new form of energy is expressed by this card, and it's a form that requires protection to thrive. Now, what happens when that air card, that genesis of air, of thought, of tribe, manifests in the past, the sphere of Earth? Well, some alchemy is going to happen here. We've got a little wheel here. It's sort of a quick reference for us. Air consumes Earth. So what does that mean? What that means is that this card consumes the energy of the past. Our past, the foundation of our present conflict, is being absorbed in this genesis. There's a new thing that absorbs the energy we had in the past. It soaks it up. So what could that mean? Well, if we are the Queen of Flowers, perhaps this is a realization we had. Perhaps this is some watershed moment in our past that led us to realize a bit of where we are. For me, I think this card would represent something akin to the moment I thought up Dragonfruit, the moment I thought up this idea. And it took a lot of work to bring it to where it is now, to where I can share it with people. But I had to protect it. I had to believe in it. I had to, and it's strange because it wasn't just that I had to protect it from other people. I had to protect it from myself. I had to allow myself to believe in it. And more than that, I had to keep myself from watering it down. There were so many times during the development of this product that I thought, I should make this more accessible. I should make this more marketable. I should make this more a thing that regular people will be drawn to because it's not that deep. But that didn't feel right to me. That wasn't the genesis of my idea, and I protected that genesis, and I kept investing my time and energy in figuring out how I could draw all of this weird cryptic stuff out. My past was absorbed by this genesis, and now here I am, the Queen of Flowers, somebody who's devoted to truth and wants to change the quality of consciousness in the world. And what's my challenge? It's thrust, choice, judgment, attack. So now we're getting a really interesting story, right? And this is just what it means for me. This can mean a lot of things for a lot of people. So let's move to the subconscious sphere. So this is that emotional undercurrent that underpins the conflict that we're experiencing in the present moment. What's the emotional reason? Why is this thrust our challenge? What's keeping us from making this decision, or what's clouding our vision on it? Let's take a look. Interesting. The 10 of Souls. So 10s are very energetic cards. If we scroll down here, 10, they're tied to the hymn Arcanum. And what does Arcanum mean? It means catalysis. That's a bit of a weird word. Catalysis, like a catalyst. Collapse, release, freedom. Arcanum represents sudden change. It represents almost explosive transformation. Like in chemistry, a catalyst is something that triggers a sudden change in states. So this is the 10 of Souls. So souls are tied to water, which is tied to emotion, much like this sphere. This card is in its home. No particular transformation is taking place in the meaning because it resonates. Water card, water sphere. So the 10 of Souls would be a catalysis specifically related to emotion. A sudden change in feeling, a sudden change in desire or fear. Now that's interesting. That's governing the present moment. Maybe there's a sudden change in our feelings. Maybe there's a sudden realization about our emotional energy, about the reasons that we have for the decisions we're making. Maybe that sudden change is giving us pause before we thrust forward with an unenlightened decision. Maybe we're devoted to truth, but maybe we're not aimed at truth. Maybe we're being clouded by something. I mean, all of our experiences back and forth between being wise and being foolish. In most cases, being wise is just a matter of recognizing your foolishness, and often we get so good at recognizing our foolishness that we forget we're fools. So maybe there's a sudden emotional change taking place right now that's informing the way we think and what we decide the right action is going forward. Who's to say? Let's move on. Let's move to the sphere of fire. What's going on in the future? What direction is this conflict developing in? What's one possible outcome? What's one possible manifestation? Interesting. I say that a lot. We got the Ace of Gears. So the Ace is an archetype, much like the Fool die, which generated the Queen archetype. Aces are the leader archetype. And what is this a leader of? This is a leader of direction, of path. This is a fire card in the fire sphere. Again, no elemental interaction here. This resonates. This belongs. So this leader quality, this perhaps is representative of a change in who we are in the present moment. Maybe the direction that this conflict is going is towards leadership. The main themes of aces, the main themes of these authority figures are authority, charge, attraction, influence. There's a lot of power contained in an ace. These are figures who are inspirational at a distance. You don't even have to know them. All you need is to know their story. And that alone can transform consciousness in other people. If there's a person that has the ability to paint a compelling path, and in so doing can influence others to walk that path with them, to help them on that path, well, that seems auspicious. That seems fortunate. That's a good thing to get. Now, the thing about these archetype cards is that isn't necessarily the protagonist. Perhaps that is a leadership figure. Perhaps in the future of this situation, perhaps this hesitation, this inability to thrust, or this challenge, this challenging thrust, this choice, judgment, attack that we're grappling with. Maybe there's a leader figure who can help us. Maybe there's somebody who can give us some advice, somebody whose aim is true, who can help us better understand the direction we should be aiming. When in doubt, seek people out. The Queen of Flowers. Thrust, Dragoon. Genesis, Catalysis, Authority. Let's see what's going on in our heads. Okay. So let's come back to baseline here. So what did we get? We drew the Two of Claws. What does that mean? So 2, by itself, represents sacrifice, meat war, ritual, suffering, necessity. The hymn is called Meat War. The main theme is sacrifice, with the smaller themes of ritual, suffering, and necessity. Now, as the Two of Claws, it's sacrifice in the realm of source or foundation, things like health, money, and needs. So this is a sacrifice of health, money, or needs, a very primal sacrifice, a very foundational sacrifice. And this is in our head right now. This is in our mindset, right? Now, as an earth card in the air sphere, air consumes earth. You can think of it like trees, which create oxygen, grow out of the earth. So oxygen's direct precursor is earth, air. So, a sacrifice of foundation, occupying our thoughts in the present moment. Now that sacrifice, well, that's the thing. When there's such an interaction, there's two ways you can interpret it. You can say either A, the card, the sacrifice of foundation, is made weaker by its presence in the sphere. That the sphere of air sucks the energy out of it, and so it becomes lighter. The meanings of this sacrifice are diminished. Or this sacrifice sinks into and empowers that sphere of air. Maybe some sacrifices prompting us to spend more time in our heads, more time thinking about what's going on, about what the right thing to do is. So, right now, as I record this, the world is in a weird situation. I recorded a reading earlier where this card came up, and it directly correlated to the sacrifice we're all making around the world to try and stem the tide of a pandemic. We're abstaining from work. We're trying to be distant from people. Our foundation, in a lot of ways, is being sacrificed. Now, if that's in my mind right now, it's hard for me not to see that card in that context. And how I'd like to interpret this is that the sacrifice that's going on, the foundational sacrifice that's occurring, is giving me more energy to work with. It's giving me more conscious thought to work with. I've got nothing better to do than to think and to wonder and to interrogate my motives. So maybe that's preventing me from taking the needed action. Maybe there's some kind of maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I just need to do the thing and see what happens. Perhaps the sacrifice is giving me access to energy that I didn't realize I had. There's a lot of time that's freeing up. There's a lot that I'm not using because I'm spending so much time diving into Facebook arguments. Maybe there's something more productive I could be doing. So as the Queen of Stars, the figure devoted to flow, with the challenge of thrust, well, it certainly gives me a lot to think about. And that concludes our Dragonfruit reading. I hope you got something out of that. I hope that spoke to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what these cards meant to you. How did you interpret them? How did they make you feel? Did you resonate with my own interpretations? Do you have any other questions or comments, things you'd like me to know about? Please leave a comment below and we'll have a chat. You can follow Anthromancer on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. You can follow me, Daniel James Drake, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We invite you to check out our Patreon, and if you're interested, help us fund this so we can keep doing these, and we're looking forward to doing a lot more readings for you guys. So thanks for watching. Have a good day. And remember, be moved.